Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the NorthCoders Group PLC Interim Results Investor Presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during today's meeting. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll, and if you could give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. Now I'd like to hand over to CEO Chris Hill. Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris. I'm the founder and the CEO of NorthCoders. I started NorthCoders over 8 years ago now. I am a career changer myself, which gave me the idea to train people into software development. That worked out very well for myself personally. When I was working in corporate software engineering, I saw a huge skills gap in the market. When I was working for Sky, they were looking for dozens, they were looking for hundreds of software engineers, and we just couldn't get people. So what we did is we began to hire like university graduates, and they just didn't really come equipped with the exacting skills required by us on the ground. So we were like running mini training boot camps for these individuals, and that gave me the idea, given the traction of coding boot camps, to go over to Manchester and start NorthCoders in 2015, and I'm still here today. And I'll hand over to Charlotte to introduce herself and the other board members who are not with us today.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Charlotte Pryor. I am the CFO at NorthCoders. I've been with the company for around 5 years now. I am a chartered management accountant, and I look after the kind of finance, payroll, HR function of the business. The other members of our board, we have Amol Batra. He is Chief Partnerships Officer. Amol was a very early stage investor and chose to stay on and work for the company, and heads up the sales and marketing function. We have 2 non-execs. Nick Parker is from a finance background, and Angela Williams is from a HR people background. Both have vast experience with PLC businesses and help us along the way. Cool. I'll just go over some financial highlights from the RNS this morning. So we are pleased to report that revenue grew to 3.5 million from 2.3 million in the same period in 2022. We've had record demand for our consumer bootcamp training, our core area of the business. This achieved revenues of 2.8 million, up from 1.7 in the same period in 2022. Our underlying adjusted overall EBITDA was just over break even. This was in line with management expectations. We always planned to make investments into business solutions and tech returners in the first half of the year. And so this was in line with where we planned to be. So as I said earlier, the consumer training boot camps area of the business grew by 65% and achieved an adjusted EBITDA of just over 500,000. This shows ongoing profitability in that area, and there is ongoing efficiencies to be making with the Encore platform that we are building at the minute. Loss after tax of 0.2 million, delivering an EPS of negative 2.07 pence. We have experienced some difficulties in the corporate solutions side of the business, which we will go over further in the slide deck. But we are in a good, strong cash position with a strong balance sheet at the end of the period. Some operational highlights. So our coding bootcamp training sector of the business has seen applications more than double in the period to 7,107. And then as at Q3, applications stood at now over 10,000. We've achieved further successful Department for Education funding. So we are currently working on a bid of 4.5 million. This runs from October and then into 2024. And we currently have a bid out for a further 10 million of funding, which will start in February if we are successful in that bid, and will run for 18 months. The geographical expansion plan is going really well. At the point of our IPO in 2021, we only had students from Manchester and Leeds. We now have over 45% of our students coming from areas outside of Manchester and Leeds. This really opens up the job market and means that we can grow that side of the business further. Tech returners are now fully integrated into the business. They provide conversations with big corporate companies where we can cross-sell NORTHCODERS products as well. And they are, we're now benefiting from efficiencies between teams. Tech returners brought the Reframe conference to the group. So Reframe Women in Tech is a conference that's been run in Manchester. It attracted around 750 people at the last conference, and we're now running that conference in London to increase corporate brand awareness in that region. Business solutions, although if we have faced a tough, we have been facing a tough year, and we do forecast that times will continue to be tough in that area. We are pleased to report that we have signed our first public sector contract. So that is with a significant government department. It's a small contract, but the good thing about that is that it enables us to create case studies and win further work in that area. Investment into Encore is on track. We are on track to be running with that in Q1 2024. That will enable further efficiencies within the training area of the business and enable us to increase profit margins in that area. And then data engineering and cloud engineering are both launched. Data engineering was launched first, and we are really pleased with how strongly that's performing. Graduates are going on to earn well over the average of what we see from our graduate pool, and cloud engineering is picking up nicely. Just for some further financial analysis, if we look at the Consumer Bootcamp's P&L on its own, we can see revenue growth of 65%, 0.5 EBITDA and a 1.9 gross profit on 2.8 million revenue. As I said before, we've got further infrastructure improvements to be made, further efficiencies, further revenue growth. We are able, because of our increase in applications, to have the entry standard higher than ever. We are able to be more picky in that area and ensure that people leaving the course are of the highest standard. And in turn, the average starting salary is now increasing nicely at 28,500. Obviously, that looks it's going down from that 0.5 to the overall EBITDA. There's been some investments in overhead, so above the line investments. Business services, we've invested around 0.5 million into overheads and 0.3 so far in tech returners. Business services is sales, staff, marketing, really making sure that that brand is ready for market, making sure that we are attending conferences so that we can go up against the likes of FDM, Sparta Global, and really make a dent in the business services sector. Tech returners, we've done some work on commercializing their products and bringing them into the group in a time where we have seen a downturn in the tech economy. We have had contracts delayed and we've had contracts deferred, but we feel that we're in a good position to pick up on tailwinds as they come through.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm gonna go over the company overview. So we have two main divisions within the company. Our training bootcamps division is our robust and core, highly profitable business model within the organisation. And the majority of our business over the years has stemmed from our training bootcamp division. In fact, we've actually achieved 50% year-on-year growth from this division, and then we do continue to make further investments into our business solutions side of the company, which is our consultancy and our corporate academies. I'll talk through the training bootcamp division first and to explain a little bit about what we do within training bootcamps. We have three main flavors of training bootcamp: software development, data engineering, and cloud engineering. And the way that our framework works is that we have a pool of people who wish to join, so that's the application phase. And what we do within the application phase is that we make sure that we're only selecting the real best people to join our onboarding and actually come into the training phase of our coding bootcamps. It's around about 5% of people who apply for the course actually end up taking a seat on one of the training bootcamps. And the reason for that is that we would much rather have less people graduating from our course and keep that real high brand presence and making sure that everyone who does embark upon the training bootcamp gets a incredibly positive outcome for that individual, which is where the career element comes into the course. It's important to us every single person that we take on gets the outcome in which they hope for when they embarked on the journey with us. So within the training bootcamp division, over the next 12 to 18 months, we're set to embark on some further growth initiatives, including new teaching disciplines, both within software development and other technical services. So we're looking at bringing in different programming languages to bolster our main software development training bootcamps, which is going to give us variants of outcomes for those individuals who take our courses. One thing that we've never really done is we've never really monetized the pipeline of people who come out of our course. Our community is now at least 2,000 strong. So we are putting together a series of courses which are for people within their careers once they do start out with the business in their first role, where they can cross-skill into areas such as, for example, if you're a software developer, understanding cloud engineering is going to give you some much better career opportunities. And whilst that's not something that's going to be like a huge amount of revenue, once we've developed the courses and people are sort of using their subscription credits to access those, they will be a highly profitable item within our P&L account. Charlotte mentioned before the Encore platform, which is basically our sort of automated teaching platform. At the moment, we have a very much what you could say is a demand-driven service that when someone needs help, they press the button and we come along to help them. And what we are moving to through Encore is we're moving to constantly monitoring that person's work and where they're up to and understanding how they're taking the curriculum in and where they're getting to, so we can begin to group people up into understanding and running like miniature seminars where we bring people together. And we're actually going to end up being able to give people more of our time, but it being much more efficient for our teams and therefore our cost base. And this is also proving that this is an opportunity for us to be able to launch a sort of part-time earn as you learn program, which backed by our brand and the outcomes that we get for those individuals, we think could be a huge growth area for the business, something that we could certainly continue with our sort of geographic expansion, possibly, even outside of the UK, because it is rather rare that someone's able to offer such a great curriculum framework, but with the access able to be part-time, distance learning, and so on and so forth. So the Business Solutions division, which is the division of this year, as we've explained in the message that went out this morning, we are seeing delays and deferrals of some of our contracts. Corporate academies this year have been a difficult part of the business. But to put that into perspective, there's been some humongous redundancies made in the tech sector. You could take a company like Accenture, I think it was tens of thousands of redundancies that they actually made. So if you think that at the graduate end of their business, once they're making lots of people redundant, they're not going to be recruiting for graduates in the same year. So therefore, those academies are put off. And then at the same time, some of our other clients who maybe are usually recruiting people from university to train into tech, there's a larger pool of people for them to recruit from with experience that don't need training, that are possibly more ready to hit the ground running. So we have seen this year be a tough year, which has impacted on our forecasted numbers as we saw this morning. But just to explain our business solutions division, we have multiple levels of engagement with corporate clients. Launch is our hiring service, where we are looking for opportunities for NORTHCODERS graduates to get their first job in industry. Enhance is a little bit of wraparound support for those individuals in their early years of their career. Our elite program is where the very best graduates from NORTHCODERS are on a consultancy basis, employed by NORTHCODERS and deployed into businesses. And then further to that, our incubators, where we also have senior team leaders to take away the pressure felt by businesses of bringing in people who are new to industry, new to technology, and we can really look after the pain points for them within that. And that's something that we are currently embarking on doing with some large organisations such as Equal Experts within central government, and there's some huge frameworks that we've been put onto, which gives us good positive pipeline for the future. So in terms of the growth strategy for the business solutions division, we've got a real focus on diversity within emerging technologies. So when we're talking about developing AI, machine learning, data lakes, and all the things that do underpin, the hype around AI, we've got a real diverse group of people who are ready to go into that sector, which we genuinely believe we can be a spokesperson about how good and positive that's going to be for the industry, that we get people from all walks of life. We've trained people, not just university graduates from the kind of same backgrounds as what has generally been the people who go into the technology sector over the years, but we've trained a busker, and she's now a senior software engineer for the Charity Commission. We trained the tannoy announcer for Manchester Piccadilly train station. There really is no such thing as a typical NORTHCODER, and that's what, as we embrace new technologies, we think we've got a real voice within that for companies to embrace bringing those type of people into these emerging technologies. We are developing our go-to-market strategy this year. We've invested in marketing, we've invested in business development and sales. We're going to continue to do so over the coming year, whilst the contracts haven't quite started coming to fruition yet. We genuinely believe that we're not investing in something that's never going to happen. This could really be the real hockey stick growth area for NORTHCODERS over the next few years. And from there, we've got a great sales pipeline. This has been a little bit unpredictable, but we're sort of really tightening up on what we consider as a sort of contracted, budgeted sale within this division. In terms of competition, there's various angles. Obviously, this operates across sort of multiple playing fields, and we've got there's a rather fragmented market when it comes to like boot camps and training providers. There's some very small providers, and there is also some big ones, especially within skills boot camps. There's a real barrier to entry now, though, when it comes to delivering the skills boot camps, because it's not so easy to get onto those frameworks. So that's quite a good defense strategy when it comes to sort of boot camps. So we have over the years seen people think, oh, that looks like an incredibly lucrative market, and I can get one of these, coding boot camps spun up relatively easily, but that's certainly no longer the case. Hire, train, deploy is a big market. We are a challenger brand within that market, but we really do believe in the strength of our brand. People often ask, well, what about universities? Are people not going to go to universities to gain these skills? But the problem there is same as I witnessed when I worked for Sky all those years ago, is that people they just don't keep up with the curriculum. We're like on the absolute bleeding edge of turning around curriculum changes within weeks, not months or years, unlike the universities. So that is the one thing that we can say, is that we are definitely more in touch and ready to capitalize and prepare people for what the technology sector wants today than your traditional university. So yeah, of course, the market conditions, especially with the corporate side, as we've talked about, have been challenging this year. But despite those challenges, we do generally sit here and believe that tailwinds will come from the situation that we're in now, and what we've got to do as a business is be ready to sort of jump on that bike at the top of the hill when those tailwinds come. There's been quite a lot of sort of macro uncertainty, different decisions within government, but none of those have affected, where we are as a business, and things like our skills bootcamp frameworks that we work within are incredibly robust, and we've not seen any problems there whatsoever. And ultimately, in the areas with which we operate, there's still a humongous skills gap, and there's new technologies coming in that people don't understand how to embrace, and we are perfectly positioned to help businesses and individuals work with that. So we're incredibly confident as to the future of the business. Cool.
So to go over some finances, we have a graph on here to show the revenue makeup. As we said before, it was predominantly consumer trading in the first 6 months of the year. The revenue growth per half year, as you can see from the bar chart, is growing, has grown half year on half year. That's something that we are proud of, that we have grown revenue in what has been a really kind of uncertain economy for the tech industry. There's clearly still really high demand for our courses. A lot of people talk about AI and whether that's going to affect us as a business. I think, and what we have kind of seen, is that the more AI and the more tech is talked about in social media, the more kind of it attracts people towards a technology career. So we can see here on the P&L, 63% gross profit margin, and then how that kind of falls down to the net loss after tax. On the cash flow side of things, we have a comfortable cash position. We've had no new bank loans in the period, and we are repaying bank loans. We're keeping an eye on these, as obviously interest rates have increased, but we do have fixed interest rates on those loans. We don't have the Santander CBILS loan anymore, which was tracked on base rate. We have fixed interest rate loans, and we also have our large cash balance in a nice savings account, so that should offset some of that interest too. No bad debt in the period. We have tax refund from R&D activities. And then if we look at the balance sheet, it's not the most detailed balance sheet, but it's kind of shows that non-current assets are growing. Current assets have obviously grown in the period along with cash, and the non-current liabilities are obviously reducing as we pay off those bank loans. So a summary of the overall sentiment of the RNS today. Application momentum is continuing, as we've said. Demand for our core products is higher than ever. We are really happy with how data engineering and cloud engineering is now performing alongside software engineering, opening up that market even further for us. Happy to say that we are still receiving support from the UK government on the Skills Bootcamp initiative. They allocated 1.5 billion over the next 6 years. We are on that framework. As Chris said before, that creates a barrier to entry, as if you are not on that framework now for the next 6 years, people won't be getting onto there. Acquisition of tech returners going really well, enabling us to be able to offer diversity pipelines. We talk a lot around business solutions in that we are waiting for the market to pick back up, and we're waiting for a turn there. But what we do have as a strategy is that a lot of big companies are crying out for diversity, and they are receiving a lot of pressure from the government bodies in that they need a more diverse workforce to be able to carry out these government contracts. So we are well placed to be able to help out in that area. But we can obviously ignore the fact that there's been budget constraints, workforce reductions, recruitment freezes, and that has led to our corporate clients delaying and deferring budgets. In line with management expectations, the current financial year is presenting some challenges, and the numbers that are out in the market have significantly reduced. We are very confident in the numbers that are now out in the market. We have been incredibly prudent when speaking to our analysts. We have made sure that the numbers that are out in the market we have visibility over, and that we are not in a position where we are promising too much. The tech economy obviously is showing some signs of improvement. We have just come out of August, which is usually a quiet month for us. And we've had a record month in August on the consumer bootcamp side, and we are having a lot more conversations with corporates as we've moved into September. As Chris said before, we're now on the Dallas framework to pick up more government-funded work, and we are in a really strong position when it comes to cash and balance sheet, and we are not looking to raise any money to carry out the investment activities that we have planned. That's the end of the slide.
That's great, Charlotte. Chris, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab just on the right-hand corner of your screen. But as well, Chris and Charlotte, take a couple of moments to review your questions. I'd just like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investment company dashboard. Chris, Charlotte, if I could invite you please to open up the Q&A tab. You'll see a number of questions both submitted ahead of today's event and during the presentation. If I could ask you just to read out the questions, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Cool. Okay. I'll go first, Charlotte, with the first question. So it's, are there any plans to increase the float availability of shares, thus encouraging more institutional investors into the company? There were no plans at present to raise any more money from the market in terms of new shares for new money. It's not something I've planned. We are in a very strong cash position, and we've got investments we can make off our own balance sheet. In terms of encouraging institutional investors to join the story, and there is many different ways in which they can do that. We are certainly in conversation with some who are incredibly excited over joining us, but they can buy shares in the market, or there is obviously some institutions that may be in a position where they want to exit their position, and we're always running our investor relations in a very open way through our brokers, that we know when those opportunities might arise, that we can ensure that that's the best situation for everybody. And then we've got, can you give an overview of the industry? Who are your direct competitors, and what is the market share makeup? Has the market share changed in recent years? It is a difficult question to answer, the size of the market and what is our market share, because the market, I mean, where do you start, where do you stop? If you talk about just data engineering bootcamps and coding bootcamps, we can definitely say, you know, we are the biggest player in the UK market without a doubt. When you start bringing in universities, hire, train, deploy, companies like, you know, FDM, who are on the FTSE 250 that do similar activity, then the market is incredibly vast. And then some of the, you know, the largest consultancies are also considered part of that market. So our share would be incredibly small, but as is our opportunity. So it depends how you look at it. In terms of, you know, core training boot camps, we are the leading provider on that in terms of numbers and delivery of those boot camps, and the market has been growing. We've been growing again, as I said, I think at the beginning, you know, 50% year on year, and you know the market is certainly keeping up with that. Pricing trends, Charlotte, I think next.
Yeah. So what the next question is, what do your current pricing trend look like? We have increased prices over the last few years in line with inflation and in line with our kind of bootcamp becoming more reputable, and the fact that we are creating higher and higher kind of wage opportunities. We have a lot of our bootcamp contracted with the Department for Education, and we're happy to kind of say that whenever we have increased the prices with them, they have allowed that. And so our current pricing trend basically looks like we increase to cover inflationary and cover costs, but we're not too much higher than competitors. Our main competitor is probably Makers in London. And then there's a lot of other smaller coding boot camps. But relative to our kind of main competitors, we're not too different.
Cool. I think the next question is about everyone's favorite topic, AI. So it's talking about AI, artificial intelligence. How does the future of the coder look? Do you see AI as a threat or an advantage to the job of coders? And certainly in terms of in detail, the junior market, do you expect that it will massively affect the junior market versus the opposed to senior coders? In terms of declining roles for junior developers versus senior developers, I would say that's probably a bit like if there's no puppies, there's not going to be very many dogs. In the same way that people are always going to have to progress through that career. I think it's more about where it starts. So in terms of AI, we see ourselves, and yeah, nobody has seen like a sort of a knee-jerk AI strategy from NORTHCODERS or a massive marketing push on, come and join our bootcamp because we teach the best in AI. And that's because within, especially data engineering, I mean, AI, things that we know, like the chat apps that we're all, used to getting writing poems for us and so on, are all large language models, which are basically built upon data lakes and machine learning. And those things have been embedded into our data engineering curriculum from day one as it stands. So if anything, we are empowering people with the skills that they need to go into those arenas. And as far as the one thing that, we're sort of, what is our beacon, what is our voice when it comes to AI, is everyone's talking about AI being, the next thing that takes over our lives, that is going to ultimately, reshape what it means to be human in some senses. And our take on that is, we'll make sure that while we're doing that when people are going into these junior engineering jobs and people are, becoming like emerging technologists, make sure that we're embedding them with those skills that they need to use AI to the best of their power. You're not going to replace your software development team by using AI, but yeah, they probably can use that to be better and therefore add more value to your organization. And then there's also the diversity element. We're super strong on diverse teams and bringing people into the industry from the backgrounds that we've discussed previously. And I personally think it's super important that people that go into developing the AI applications, that we do make sure that that's represented from people from multiple backgrounds, as opposed to your sort of standard similar background through university and into the technology sector, as it definitely has been from what we've seen through the way that technology emerged over the past decades.
We have one here. Can you tell me about industry capacity? Is demand faster than the supply? I think we all kind of have heard about the digital skills gap in the UK and how we feel like as an economy we need to level up in the tech sector, and how there's not enough digitally skilled people. I think the pandemic only elevated that and only sped that up, in that the world is much more digitalized, and when we talk about AI, that kind of pushes that agenda forward as well. So yes, I would say the demand is faster than the supply, but I think it's also about not saturating the market in specific areas, and around ensuring that we are training people to a really high standard so that they can go into and make a real difference in these jobs.
Cool. What planned investment do you have you identified in the business for the next 6 months? So 3 key areas. One is our Encore platform, of which there is a more detailed question about later on. So we'll leave that one to answer there. Secondly is the continuation of our business development activity. We're building a corporate presence in London. We're running like our Reframe conference here in London, for example. That's one of those things that we are investing in doing. And then we've got new technical areas within our disciplines that we're investing in, albeit sustainably, in a way that we are developing new initiatives such as the part-time bootcamp and the different flavors of our course as we go along, as we generate cash, and we're just doing those investments as and when it's right to do so, and keeping our very strong cash position rather than raising any new money.
Next one, when you reference geographical expansion, are there plans for growth outside the UK? Currently, we have had some students outside of the UK, so our training platform is all streamed out online. So technically, we could teach people from anywhere in the world. I think we've had a student in France, a student in Hong Kong, a student in Iceland. Right now, we are teaching 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and so that wouldn't work for someone on a different time zone. But when NCORE comes into play and the part-time distance learning courses come into play, there's no reason why we can't grow outside of the UK. There's obviously a bit more legislation for me to get my head around when it comes to outside of the UK, but it's definitely not a reason to obviously not go into growth in other countries.
Cool, thank you. Are you still running the Rolls-Royce program? Are there any other opportunities like this with other companies? Yes, there are lots of opportunities like this with lots of other companies. We are finding it at this minute in time difficult to get commitment and start dates, and it feels like it's ever moving. Contracts, like we've got another contract which is about security clearance, which so far has been delayed since April. We have hit some sticky patches with getting these contracts started and the revenue recognised for them at the moment, but we haven't yet thought that's going to be a huge problem. So yeah, the incubator and accelerator is very much where we plan to continue to grow in the near future. Can you expand on the NCORE platform revenue opportunity? How do you charge, and what are your expectations here? So NCORE is not a revenue generating piece of technology as such. NCORE could potentially generate, will generate further training courses and ways of delivery, such as part-time. What NCORE is all about is it's all about monitoring each learner as they work through the program and being able to group people into certain understandings of certain concepts, so that, let's say, for example, if instead of it being someone presses a buzzer when they need help, that we've got a group of 5 or 6 people that NCORE has identified are finding it a struggle to get past point X in some certain piece of the coursework, and so on. We can grab all those people together, no matter where they are, no matter what time it is, and we can initially deliver live content to those people in terms of a miniature seminar group, giving the learners more time, but also meaning that we have less of a bank of people sat there waiting for these type of requests. But of course, in the future, there's very much a way that if we identify that we're delivering multiple of these breakout sections of lecture that are always about one particular core concept, as we do now, we'll be able to predefine written video and exercise content to be able to deal with that without the need for intervention from one of our teams. So it's very much all about efficiency and experience, the NCORE platform.
That's great. Charlotte, Chris, thank you very much indeed. You've taken all those questions from investors, and thank you for your engagement this evening. Chris, Charlotte, I know investor feedback will be important to you. I'll shortly redirect those on the call to give you their thoughts and expectations. But if I may, Chris, just ask you for a few closing comments just to wrap up with, and then, as I said, I'll go and redirect investors for their feedback.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us and taking the time. We love telling the story, and we have huge confidence in the business due to the fact that we have got this underlying training bootcamp business, which is, as said, we've grown that 50% year on year, and we've grown that significantly in the comparable period from the first half of this year to first half of last year. That underlying is incredibly profitable and generates cash to really strengthen the balance sheet without the need for dilution and investment. But yeah, we also do have so many opportunities that we are looking to capitalize on, and we have also got the way that we are going to manage the kind of investment into those areas in the coming year. And yeah, we're really excited just to keep going and see where we get to.
That's great, Chris.
Thank
Charlotte, thank you once again for updating investors this evening. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. This only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of NorthCoders Group PLC, I'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. Good evening to you all.